Welcome to the very first episode of Curtis Does Content. My name is Curtis Lee Rogers, and I'm proud to host a dreamy little site called curtiscreates.com. And I wanted to see how many times I could say Curtis in the first 20 seconds of this podcast. And I think we're up to like 75, so doing pretty good. Welcome. And if I had to sum up this podcast in one sentence, what is this going to be about? I would say it like this. This is going to be the story of the laptop lifestyle without all the stupid hype. Now, what do I mean by that? The laptop lifestyle. Right? Everybody wants to be a digital nomad. Everybody wants to travel and work online. And there's a lot of people that will take advantage of that. They'll try to sell you their $47 ebook that, they'll teach you how to post a few Google ads or a few Facebook ads and make millions of dollars on products you don't even have to own and all this stupid stuff. I know because I tried it and none of that stuff worked. And that's why I call it the stupid hype. You know, these people that tell you that you'll be on the beach every day with your laptop, working like 1 hour a day on the beach with your laptop, and it's going to be sweet, you know? And you're going to make $1 million. You better make $1 million. You better make enough to replace your laptop every single day. Hey, I don't know if you ever tried to get beach sand out of your escape key, but you're pretty much going to have to replace that laptop every single day if you do that. So I don't want to tell that fictional story, and maybe it's happened for a few people, and that's fine. I'm going to tell you a different story. I'm going to tell you a story about a middle-aged gay man, ex-pastor, who sold everything, who quit his job, and hit the road. I'm going to tell you the story of what it's really like, the daily grind of being on the road. We're going to talk about the extreme loneliness of the road and the extremely hyper social situations of the road. We're going to talk about the lessons that you can learn on that journey, the lessons I've learned on my journey. Look, I know I've already said in the first 2 or 3 minutes of this podcast, I mentioned who I am and what I'm about. You know, I mentioned some details about my life. I mentioned the fact that I was gay. I mentioned the fact that I used to be a pastor. Now, I want to clarify something right up front. I do not want this podcast to be about that, about being gay. I don't want it to become something about religion, about being an ex-pastor. That's not what this is for. So I don't want it to be that. But I also don't want it to not be that. See what I mean? I don't want to put any limits on what I can talk about on here. Now, it's true, this podcast may be for you. Like, it may be for you if you've always dreamed about traveling and working on the road, and what does that really look like, and how does that function? Great, this podcast is for you. If you're somebody who knows me and just wants to kind of keep up with my travels and what I'm about, thank you very much. People being interested in hearing your story is like the ultimate compliment, and so thank you, and you're welcome. And this podcast is for you. Those of you that have kept up with my journey and sent your love and best wishes and held my hand through the rough parts. This podcast is for you. Or maybe this podcast is for you if you like to travel around and you've been doing it for a while and you just want to swap some stories with other nomads, digital nomads who've done the same thing, or people with a great amount of wanderlust. You might enjoy hearing some of the stories from the road. So that's great. Maybe this podcast is for you. But I'll tell you what, in one way, I got to be honest with you. This podcast is for me. Because a lot has happened since I've hit the road. I've learned a lot about myself. I've learned a lot about the world. I've learned a lot about life on the road and versus sort of a quiet suburban life. I've learned all of that. And this is a chance for me to unpack it. It's a chance for me to be myself and kind of talk about the things that naturally come up in my journey. That's what I mean. Like, if some gay stuff happens, like, you're going to hear about it. If some religion-y type stuff is on my mind that day, you may hear about it. But all in the context of what it's like to be sort of this wandering soul. If you're thinking about hitting the road, here's the first bit of advice, and I'm going to throw this in at the end of episode 1, just so get kind of a little sampling, a little smattering, a little taste, a little amuse-bouche of what's coming. The first piece of advice I would give you would be, you really need to get comfortable with who you are. Like I said, I'll talk about stuff that comes up in the course of a day. You know why? Because for a long time, I couldn't talk about that stuff. I was so afraid, so worried that it was going to hurt people or offend people, or that someone wouldn't like me if I said the wrong thing. Man, being on the road changed all that. You know why? Because when you're on the road, you have to grow up quick and you have to be confident, and no one is out there to really have your back all the time. I mean, you meet people, you meet wonderful people, and they could be the greatest people in the world, and you'll know them for 7, 10 days, maybe a month or 2 at the most. And then you keep in touch with them, but they're not right there with you anymore. So you have to get used to this idea that you're going to be around some of the most amazing people in the world. You're going to meet some of the most fascinating characters in the world. And you're going to hear their stories and just get to know what makes them tick. Sometimes on a really deep level, you'll get to know these folks. And then they'll just walk out of your life. Yeah, you'll still talk. And I actually ran into more of the folks that I've met. Like, I've met a lot of people in the United States, and then I'll meet up with them in Europe or something like that. So the real good ones you tend to see again at some point. But my point is that you go from all of that to being completely alone. You know, when the COVID lockdown happened, I was in Athens in Greece, and all of a sudden, you know, here I am. I saved up all this money and tried really hard to get to Europe. Finally got there. And a couple of months into my European stint, then all of a sudden the whole world locked down. What a great bit of timing that was for that. So I had to come back to the United States. Well, when that happens, everything changed. You have to 100% rely on yourself. You know, I had to call the embassy and figure out what in the world was going on, and how long could I stay in the country, and what if I couldn't get back, and all this kind of stuff. I had to figure all that out. I had to figure out, how in the world am I going to find the money to get on a plane and go back to the United States? I don't know if I can afford this right now, you know. There were all these questions. The place I was staying at closed down. I had to find a new place to stay. I mean, and again, it went from this hyper social situation to all of a sudden the hostel closed down, and then I had to go stay in an Airbnb outside of the city in a neighborhood I'd never been in before, didn't know anything about, and was one of the few people in the neighborhood that spoke English. And you know that my Greek is terrible. I know like 5 phrases in Greek. And I made it. And it was fine. I actually enjoyed having a little bit of peace and solitude for a while. And eventually I managed, reluctantly at the time, managed to get back to the United States. And I thought my journey was over at that point. But then from that point on, I mended some fences with my family. I met some of the most amazing, incredible people that, shout out to Ocean Beach. The people in Ocean Beach were fantastic. You'll hear a lot about that part of my journey. More than likely, you'll hear a lot about that part of my journey. What I'm saying to you is that, if some middle-aged gay ex-pastor can do it, then you can do it. I really struggled with a lot of stuff, and the road has sort of helped me see that all in a different light. And here's the biggest gift life on the road gives you. When you live out in the suburbs, or if you're a kind of person that lives a life that's routine, you're doing the same stuff day in and day out, and you're around the same people day in and day out. Look, there's a benefit to that. There is. You get in a comfortable place. There's security in that. What you lose when you hit the road is all of that. You don't have the security of your stuff. You don't have the security of having the same people around you day in and day out. You don't have the security of the same routine day in and day out. So it can be a bit of a struggle, but it also teaches you to live your life in a completely different way, because every day is a new adventure. Can you imagine, one day you're waking up and staring at the Parthenon, and another day you wake up and you're staring at a cornfield. You never know what's going to happen from day to day. And it's the biggest adventure, but I want you to be prepared. It would be a shock to the system. So if you are a person that's sort of bored with your life, if you're walking every week, you're walking into the Walmart week after week, and the highlight of your life is, oh, look, honey, the cheesy poofs are on sale for like $7.99 for a 10-gallon bucket of it. If that's the highlight of your week, then you probably need to do something to shake up your life pretty dramatically. You may want to hit the road for a little while. If your stuff is beginning to own you, if your routine is starting to own you, you might want to consider some time out on the road. So maybe time you learned a little bit about putting some passion and beauty in your life again. Like I said, I'm not going to sugarcoat things here. I'm going to tell you the way life on the road really is. But I'm going to be honest with you. It can be a grind at times. But man, the payoff, the people you meet, the experiences you have, the beauty that you see in the universe, the beauty that you witness in this world is absolutely mind-boggling and spectacular. I've even thought that I believe that anyone who is in seminary, anybody that's training to go into the ministry, I think it should be mandatory that they spend at least a month staying in a hostel somewhere. Not so they can blab their mouths and tell everybody what they think about everything and teach people their way of thinking about God and the world and all that kind of stuff. That's not what I mean. I think that people should stay, like seminary students should stay in a hostel for at least a month so they can shut up and listen and learn the way that young folks, the way that sort of the world citizens are talking about things like life and meaning and purpose and God and burritos and smoothies and beer and the ocean and all this kind of stuff. I really think you should just shut up and take it in. because it changed me. It made me better. And that's what I want for you as well. Thank you so much for your time. Thanks for tuning in. And I hope you'll continue to listen. If this is the last time you listen, then I thank you for the time you've given it. We'll see you the next time. This has been Curtis, and this has been Curtis Does Content. Bye, everyone. Unlock exclusive content by becoming a supporter. Visit buymeacoffee.com/creates for more information. Follow me on Instagram or Facebook at Curtis Creates, or visit the website at curtiscreates.com. Thanks for listening.